We like to believe that the greatest ideas rise to the top, but sometimes it doesn't. And we've all seen it. In real life, we realize that the loudest and the most confident voices often get heard first, and sometimes they even get believed, even when there's not much wisdom and research behind it. And you've seen it happen in the workplace. The one who dominates the meeting, they really speak with clarity and loudness and conviction, and everyone's nodding, even when what they said wasn't that insightful. You see, when it comes to your idea being heard, it's not often the smartest person or the most intelligent person that gets heard. It's about how the brain works. And in this video, I'm going to break down why this happens and what you can do so that you can project authority and have influence without pretending to be someone you're not. I call it the projection paradox, and it's something that I observed in my more than 10 years of being an executive coach, where projection paradox is a strange psychological effect where people who project loud and with certainty, they are perceived as being more competent. Now, notice this. You can project certainty and confidence and really be confident, or you can even fake it. There are individuals who even fake certainty and fake confidence, and that too even gets perceived as competence. So that's a strange psychological effect. Whereas on the other spectrum of it, there are individuals who really have hesitation. They don't speak up, they don't say much, they listen first. And it's because genuinely they want to really think through what they want to say, or sometimes it's because genuinely they want their contribution to really be the most wise contribution they make. So they don't necessarily aren't the loudest person in the room and they don't necessarily speak up first. But again, this strange psychological phenomenon, which I'm calling the projection effect, what happens is that these individuals who hesitate are perceived as being less competent. And it really has something to do with the brain's salient network. Our salient network is a very complex network of neurons in our brain. And what it does is it filters out information to decide what's relevant and what's not relevant. And the way it does this is that it responds to intensity. It responds to that, it looks for that, and it filters out other information. Loud or certain voices activate attention and reward systems in the brain faster than quiet or uncertain voices. And that's why individuals who have that volume and have that certainty, that's why it attracts attention and trust. Now, on top of that, if a voice was loud and if they had certainty, and at the same time they had a greater level of fluency, then the fluency effect takes place where individuals who communicate with greater fluency, their message feels more true. So as you can see, this is exactly why through the brain salient network, how individuals can oftentimes mistake volume for value and how they can mistake confidence, even faked confidence, for competence. If you understand this, you can develop these communication skills, and for better or for worse, for serving yourself or serving others, you can have that influence without changing yourself. Now, let's decode this. Let's talk about the mastery strategies that smart speakers use to gain influence and to gain trust. Starting with mastery strategy number 1, and it's regulate before you communicate. So what do I mean by regulation? I'm really referring to your nervous system regulation, because anytime in those moments where you feel nervous, anytime you feel like you are second-guessing yourself, imposter syndrome, wondering whether or not you come across in the way you want to come across, whether or not there's a little bit of anxiety or a little bit of worry about what the response might be, any one of these experiences you may have on the inside creates nervous system dysregulation. And the dysregulation comes across in the nervous system as fight or flight. And this is very difficult in that moment when your nervous system is dysregulated. There's a lot going on in your body, in your physiology as well, where it becomes really difficult to articulate clearly because it's very difficult to think clearly and be organized in your thoughts. So if you've ever had those moments where you kind of lost your stream of thought, or if you couldn't find the right words to say, or if you couldn't recall what you thought about, or what you couldn't recall anything in your knowledge, it's because of this. It's because of nervous system dysregulation. It's really a thinking problem more than it is a speaking problem. So this is where it comes to really important to regulate before you communicate. And it's not about needing to fake confidence. Because, you can fake confidence, and as I mentioned before, when you fake confidence, the salience network picks up on confidence and mistakes confidence for competence, even fake confidence. But here's the thing with faked confidence is that it's unsustainable, Because if your confidence isn't real, that means inside of you there's a lack of certainty about your skill or your ability to carry forward or your ability to produce outcomes. And that will always reveal itself if you were to get the position, for example. So I don't recommend faking confidence. It's important to have substance, because confidence without substance, that's more aligned with hype than it is about integrity. I don't recommend that, but I do recommend regulating your nervous system. And all this is, it really is closing the gap between your internal mastery so that you can project masterfully. Because masterful projection in your communication is your ability to be masterful internally, and you can't lead others before you lead yourself first. It's important to have that internal self-mastery before you can project yourself in ways that are aligned with leadership. So if you are thinking about this and you recognize that maybe that this is something you're going through, then I want to share with you that I'm preparing something special to help you close that gap. And it's what I'm calling my year-end intervention, because I've noticed that at this time of year, too many brilliant professionals are holding back and being held back from positions they know and opportunities they know that they can have. So I'm preparing something called a year-end mastery collection, and it is a rare collection of my best trainings and my best strategies that up until now I've only shared with my mentorship clients, but I'm releasing them to the public. So if you want to be the first to know about this and take advantage of my vault, then click the link below this video and sign up for my waitlist. And this leads us to mastery strategy number 2, which is to replace volume with resonance. If you desire to communicate in a way that elevates trust and elevates your influence, it's important to have resonance. Resonance is being on the same frequency as your listeners, as your audience. And the way to be in the same frequency as them is to first understand what they value and who they are. And it's also important, before you can understand who they are, it's important for you to understand who you are. And this is why my message is, well, don't try to be confident or don't try to sound confident, because the more you try to sound it, the more it goes more towards hype and it's not genuine, then it's unsustainable. But one doesn't try to be confident in as much as one tries to be happy. You embody it, right? Think about it. If you are genuinely happy, you don't need to try to be happy and you don't need to prove that you're happy, right? Same thing with confidence. If you are genuinely confident, then you don't need to try to sound confident and you don't need to do things or say things to prove that you're confident. And confidence comes from the inside out. It does not come from the outside in. And this is the mistake a lot of people make, is that their confidence depends on circumstances and what people say around them and opportunities around them. I mean, if things are going well, their confidence is high. When things don't go quite as planned, their confidence takes a shot. And that's a problem. It's a roller coaster if your confidence depends on things going around you externally, which you have no control over. So don't try it and don't try to achieve it. It's embodied. And the best form of competency comes from mastery. And mastery is definitely not something you perform. It's something that you radiate, because you've mastered from within the things that are important to master. And it might be a skill, but before it can be a skill, it's mastery of yourself, mastery of your thoughts, mastery of your self-awareness, mastery of your own emotions, mastery of how you perceive things around you and analyze and extrapolate meanings around you. All of these are wise to master before you go and master the next thing or master the next skill or master the next project. So mastery really comes from the inside out. And when you achieve mastery in this way, you really achieve resonance. And resonance is always more sustainable than volume. Because if you are trying to sound confident and have a louder voice, well, sure, you could be heard and people could be listening and appreciating what you say because your voice is louder. But if it doesn't have substance behind it, and it doesn't have genuine confidence behind it, then the outcomes are not sustainable. I define mastery as the ability to execute effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. Right? Some people call this unconscious competence. And if you think about it, how does a person achieve unconscious competence? It's through their procedural memory. When you start out doing something new, you're not that great at it, and it takes a tremendous amount of effort and focus to be able to become great at it. And through consistency and persistency, eventually you become good at it, and you become even better at it, And then as the journey continues, you have mastered it. And now it's unconscious competence. It's ability to perform effortlessly without the use of conscious resources. And your procedural memory in your mind, it automates that masterful delivery. It's automated. And that's why it's limited use of conscious resources, because it's been automated by your procedural memory. And that's why individuals who truly achieve mastery within themselves and mastery within their emotions and their leadership skills within themselves, that's why they articulate clearly and articulate confidently, genuinely, because when you have truly mastered it, you have confidence in what you have to deliver. You have confidence that you're in your abilities. You have confidence in what you're saying and conviction in it too. So it results in a calmer delivery because you've achieved mastery. Mastery strategy number 3 is to eliminate the verbal underminers. These are words that undermine your credibility. And I hear this so often. Let me just give you a few examples of underminers. They are words and phrases like, I think, maybe, I'm not sure, perhaps. Like, these are underminers. And it's like somehow, for some reason, it's very common in our language that we say these things. I think it's supposed to do that, or I think the outcomes mean this. I think my interpretations are correct. And it's so common. I see this in leadership circles. I see this in executive circles as well. But you see, on a subconscious level, when you say these phrases, I think so, perhaps, I'm not sure, but it undermines what you know to be true. And even though your listeners, your audience may not give you feedback on it, their subconscious mind picks up on these words because language is a living thing and words have deeper meanings, and it comes across as hesitation. And remember, I mentioned this at the beginning of this video, the concept of fluency bias. When people articulate more fluently, the words sound truer. So when you put these underminers in your language, especially if you're trying to get buy-in or if you desire to connect and build meaningful relationships and you insert these underminers, it really goes against the fluency bias and the words sound less true. And even though they may not object to you, or even though they may not ask you any clarifying questions, it casts some doubt on your credibility. So this is masterful strategy number 3, is to notice when and how you utilize these underminers and remove them from your vocabulary. Mastery strategy number 4 is to conduct the relational tempo. Whether or not you realize this, every time you step into a room or into a conversation, there is a tempo, which is a pulse, an invisible and unspoken rhythm of attention, of emotion, of decision, and so on. It's invisible tempo. And most people, when they walk into conversations and they walk into rooms, they passively try to synchronize with the tempo that's already there. It's a collective tempo. And it's passive because they're trying to fit in, they're trying to be one of the crowd, go with the flow, and so they just synchronize with the tempo. But great leaders, when they walk into conversations, they have an understanding of the tempo in the room, and they don't change themselves to synchronize with it. Instead, they conduct it. You see, when our brains process language, they synchronize, which means that when two people are fully engaged with each other, their neural oscillations start to lock into rhythm with each other. It's kind of like two instruments that are playing the same note. It's like that. And this concept is called interbrain synchrony, where your brain waves mirror the other person that you are fully engaged with. And that's why great communicators conduct the relational tempo in the room. They show up and they communicate with coherence, with congruence, and they regulate the emotional rhythm, and they transmit that steadiness. And that's why when they have that type of magnetism, it's captivating. And others that are fully engaged with you, with that speaker who's portraying that type of steadiness, their brain waves start to lock into symmetry with them. And here you have a room full of people where you've conducted the relational tempo. And that's why this is a key strategy. And mastery strategy number 5 is to anchor with alignment. The goal here is not to try to sound confident. The goal is to be congruent. Trying to sound confident without substance is hype, and hype is incongruent. But when you are congruent, congruent reads as authenticity. Congruence is having alignment, and that's when your inner states, your thoughts, your emotions, and your intentions, and your outer expressions, which is your tonality, your language, and your micro movements in body language. When both of those things are expressing in the same frequency, that's when you have alignment, and that's where people feel your integrity before they even process the logic of your message. And the brain picks up on this and reads it as trust and trustworthiness. There's two areas of the brain, the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, that detects the incongruence between what someone says and what their energy broadcasts. And human beings have this internal implicit pattern recognition. That's how they pick up on sincerity. They don't necessarily trust perfection, but they definitely do trust integration, the integration between the opposites that creates that congruence and that alignment. And that's when you've achieved mastery, it really is when your inner knowing, the inner knowing of who you are, what's important to you, the inner knowing of your thoughts, your emotions, and your intentions, when that inner knowing matches your outer knowing and your outer expression, that's when you truly have achieved mastery. And there's two areas of the brain, which are the anterior cingulate cortex and the insula, that detect the incongruence between who people say they are and what their energy broadcasts. And that's why human beings, they have this implicit pattern recognition, and that's how they pick up on sincerity. They don't necessarily trust perfection or people who appear to be perfect, but they definitely do trust integration or the synthesis between who they are and who they say they are. And that's why mastery is really about when your outer expression matches your own inner knowing, the inner knowing of who you are, your thoughts, your emotions, and your intentions. When those two match, your outer expression and your inner knowing, you've achieved mastery. And when you've achieved mastery, that's when others will trust you due to their own inner knowing.